This is the second video of a series investigating the nature of our emotional reactivity. Why can't I control my own reactions? The first video goes into some depth about reactivity, samskaras, and the energy body. I suggest that you watch it first so that you have some backstory here. You can tap the card above to jump directly to it. In this video, we'll elaborate on the technique for dissolving samskaras, a crucial step in reducing our reactivity. I believe this is possibly the most important skill one can learn in their entire lifetime. Because in my view, what you're learning here can help set you free, truly free. The journey for me has been invaluable. Although learning how to dissolve samskaras took quite a long time for me personally, because I was feeling my way through it and exploring many different sources before I actually got the hang of it. There are definitely some aha moments that coincide with the practice. So, are you ready? Let's get into it. First, it's essential to understand how your being is layered. The most gross and peripheral layer of our being is the physical body. The more subtle layer, serving as the energetic blueprint for the physical body, is the energy body. As we've mentioned, the energy body is the layer of being having embedded impressions from unresolved past experiences, and these are, of course, samskaras. However, the energy body is not the subtlest layer of your being. The subtlest layer of your being is awareness. Awareness is what you are at the very core. Now, if you're having trouble with what is meant by subtle and more subtle, think of it this way. Suppose we're observing an oak coffee table. At its most gross level, it has an apparent form as it supports our morning ritual and rests in the center of our living room. But as we examine closer into the more subtle composition, we discover the cellulose molecular structure. Still going more subtle, there are molecules, then atoms, and then electrons. Everything in the universe can be reduced down to matter energy. In this same way, we're looking at the more subtle aspects of the human being. The subtlest, and dare I say, the most extraordinary and miraculous, is awareness. Awareness is pure, timeless. It's always flowing, and can never be touched by any past experience or person or belief or imaginative story the mind can create. Awareness can never be damaged or darkened because it's pure light. At your core, at the subtlest layer, you are the pure light of awareness. At the most subtle level, you look more like this than the figure you see reflected back in the mirror. It's important to hold this truth close to your heart because contrary to how many see it, we're not fixing anything broken here. That metaphor doesn't actually make any sense because awareness, your true core of being, is abiding and remains not only untouched, but untouchable. How can we actually experience awareness as the core of our being? Try this. Take a breath and calm the mind for a second. Picture your last meal, what it looked like, what it tasted like, its texture, where you were when you were eating it. Okay, now after that thought goes away, what is the very next thought to pop up? Okay, so who or what is aware of the second thought? Who is watching the thought stream and able to differentiate between two separate thoughts? Can you see how subtle awareness is? Can you see how nothing can stick to this awareness? It remains unsullied by any past experience. It's ever present, in fact, it's the subtle ground of everything, but yet we don't notice it. Rather, we tend to notice the endless stream of thoughts, the content, and inner narration rather than the fact of awareness itself. That is, being aware of the mind's activity. which we just experimented with by watching the 2 consecutive thoughts. If you can make a mental shift so that you habitually know that you aren't the stories popping up on the mind screen, but rather the one who is aware of the stories, it will be completely revelatory and life-changing. With practice, you can sit as your awareness, as if perched on a bridge, watching the river of thoughts and sensations flowing below. And no matter how rapidly the river churns, you remain calmly situated above the turmoil. So let's slow down the entire cognitive and reactive process so that we can better understand what is actually happening. Consider these 3 steps: interaction, interpretation, and reaction. We're perpetually interacting with our inner and outer environments. The senses bring in information in the form of sights and sounds and smells, etc. And also, there's interaction with the internal world simultaneously. We're aware of our thoughts and our memories, our inner sensations, and what's going on around us. There's lots of input information coming in all at once. For instance, you might be preparing breakfast, feeling anxious about an upcoming meeting, responding to messages, and keeping the little ones entertained while the tune of soft music plays in the background, all at the same time. While we're interacting, we're also interpreting or making sense of this stream of stimuli. All of this information is run through the interpretive mind. We make sense of the environment by running all the information through the complex web of beliefs, identities, past experiences, and samskaras. We can think of the mind as an interpreter module. Information is constantly going in, and what comes out is personalized meaning or understanding. Notice that the meaning we derive will almost always be biased because each person has an interpreter module that is configured differently due to unique past experiences, various genetic differences, and personality proclivities. It's kind of like this. Here's the situation that's actually in front of us. We peek through the mind's lens to observe it. The mind interprets and distorts the sensory information with its complex web of belief structures. And here's how it appears to us after the interpretation. Is it any wonder we overreact? As a samskara example, it would be more apt if we grew up next to a neighbor who had a pet lion that we were absolutely terrified of. Since the mind interpreter is so close to us, we identify strongly with it. We assume our meaning and thoughts are accurate, while we confidently maintain that others are incorrect or flawed or inaccurate. However, no matter how intelligent or rational a person is, their mind interpreter operates like a thick pair of distorted glasses. Even the most objective minds are bound by limited scope. Once you see how everyone gets so upset defending their distorted view and claiming it to be the single source of truth, it becomes comedy, sometimes tragic comedy. And so without the knowledge and skills we're covering here, we react. We have interactions, and our interpreter filters it through the distortions of our past experiences and samskaras, and we immediately react, becoming afraid, angry, defensive, or lustful. Just like we partially felt and then partially resisted in the past. If we release the samskara and lend a little more clarity to the interpreter, we can undistort the everyday encounters of life and actually experience it differently. Yes, this is indeed a doorway to greater happiness. Think of dissolving samskaras as the witnessing of stored energy being released or digested. That's all we're doing here. We're releasing or digesting stored energy. That energy might have different flavors or frequencies. If we were to label the pockets of energy lodged in the subtle body, one might be called shame, another anger, another anxiety, and yet another, fear. Our goal is to dissolve these pockets of energy, and when successful, an abiding inner peace remains. It's necessary to provide all of this content in detail because the key challenge with dissolving samskaras is being aware while in the throes of emotional surges that the charge is coming from the samskara, from within one's own energy body, and not from the external person or object. This point is so important that it warrants repeating. The key to healing is becoming aware in the moment of arising emotions that the emotional charge itself is coming from one's own energy body and not from the external person or object. And in order to become aware of this fact when it matters most, you must understand conceptually how all experiences are being interpreted with your unique inherent biases. And you must also sit on the bridge, so to speak, and be aware of the thoughts and sensations streaming below without identifying with them. One way you can do this is to become fascinated with how energy gets stored, triggered, and released. You can say to yourself, look at how this body is reacting. It's welling up with fear, and yet there's no apparent danger. How interesting. Grounding techniques. The reason all of this has been so difficult for you in the past is because there are stories that you're believing in and identifying with. The stories are tightly bound up with thoughts, feelings, and sensations. It's the deep conviction to your self-describing stories that keeps the energy lodged in the subtle body, sustaining the reactivity that you're trying to change. Delinking stories from thoughts and sensations is the key. In other words, it becomes difficult to sit on the bridge watching the thoughts go by when you have a belief that you are the thought rather than the observer. You are not your thoughts. You are not your past. And it is unlikely that you can accurately predict the future in many instances. You are not the story your mind tells about you. You are the one sitting on the bridge watching the calamity of thoughts and bodily sensations below. Before now, that river of thoughts has been able to carry you downstream, but after learning this new material, you're wiser. This is a practice, however, and if you do get ensnared by the thought stream, you can use grounding techniques to climb out. Grounding techniques are simple exercises that help bring your attention back to the present moment, often by focusing on your 5 senses. And you guessed it, I've got a video for that too, so I'll put the link in the description below. Remember, only the present moment exists, and right now, you are perfectly safe, whole, and complete. All that said, if you feel more comfortable, enlist the help of a professional therapist. They're trained at holding space, allowing you to release energy while cueing with grounding techniques if they sense the mind is carrying you away. Dissolving samskaras. Let's pull together all of these pieces and step through the powerful technique used for dissolving samskaras. You can set aside dedicated time to practice until you get the hang of it, and then you'll do it naturally throughout the day as emotions arise. Here's the technique. Use your awareness to watch sensations. Let's say an emotion arises that we might call fear or anger or sadness, but don't label it as such. Consider it to be just a form of energy. Watch it, feel it fully. See if you can observe where in the body it's coming from. Is it arising from the belly or the chest or the head area? Watch the energy as it moves through your body, just as if you were courageously standing at the shoreline of the sea and allowing the wind and waves to wash over you. While it's true they can be quite intense, continue to maintain your attention on awareness itself. Let go of the thoughts and the stories and the identities and just focus on the bodily sensations. They're merely waves of energy. And like a bell curve, The energy will have an intensity and then it will also subside over time. Follow it all the way for as long as you can while it's subsiding. Allow its energy to just sink in and settle in. As it's subsiding, you can envision the pocket of energy being dissolved, being digested. Think of your core awareness as the ground from which everything arises and dissolves. Samskaras are the impressions in the energy body where energy never fully returned to its ground, and that's precisely what we're doing with this technique. We're allowing it to dissolve back into the ground of awareness. We use the word digested because your awareness, the boundless, all-accepting watcher on the bridge, fully accepts stored energy as it arises, feels and observes it intensely all the way until it dissipates. But then what happens? The digestion process adds to your vitality. It actually expands your energy body. It's important to point out that once a samskara has been dissolved and digested, it's gone forever. The idea of radical acceptance has helped me tremendously over the years. Think of it this way. We've followed rules leading us to where we are. We've trained our inner interpreter to paint something as all good or something as all bad to help us make smart decisions. Now, it's those very rules, or the deeply held belief structures, that have created the painful stored energy we're learning here to release. Acknowledge and appreciate the importance of those rules and belief structures, for in the past, they carried you through the difficult times. They helped you maintain focus and grow to become the person you are. Now, they've served their purpose and it's time to loosen or let them go. Use radical acceptance to observe the world just as it is without any judgment. Whatever is okay. The universe doesn't function like a complex machine with interlocking parts, but rather is a dynamic ocean of ever-changing energy. As human beings, we're made up of this same energy ourselves, and our lives are characterized by continuous encounters with it. When we resist the flow of energy, the universe takes note, or more accurately, stores the resistance so that the same energy can flow back into its source later on. Logically then, allowing that stored energy to fully release back to its origin is how we can release the karmic residue, or samskara, and break free from our past experiences. As someone who has personally practiced and refined this technique for years, I can attest to its transformative power. If you're still watching at this point in the video, it's likely that you've been struggling with intense feelings of misery or discomfort throughout the day. Please know that the process may take some time, so be patient. I assure you that if you trust the process, let go of the stories and the identities, and keep employing this technique, over time the waves of energy become less and less intense. You'll begin to see the world differently, more joyous and exquisitely perfect in its design. It's funny, all this material can be stated in different ways. We could just as easily have made the title of this video, How to Forgive. If you're looking to apply this technique to your specific situation, for example, OCD, PTSD, depression, addiction, or social anxiety, try cognitive behavioral therapy worksheets. There are over 100 CBT worksheets available for Patreon members. Additionally, there are grounding techniques, affirmation practices, and forgiveness worksheets available as well. I'll put the link below so that you can check it out. Wow, we have covered quite a bit here. We touched on some of the more subtle layers of being, we slowed down the cognitive processes and learned about how our minds distort experiences. We emphasized the importance of delinking stories from sensations. We threw ourselves a lifeline in the form of grounding techniques, and we discussed the technique for dissolving samskaras. I sure hope you found this video helpful. Drop me a comment below if you'd like, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.